Moments after that bombshell dropped, the FBI stormed a Chicago warehouse stuffed with mountains of hidden NBA gambling cash. Coaches, players, and mafia royalty. One big happy criminal family. The raid peeled back basketball's dirtiest secret, and what agents uncovered could torch the league's reputation forever. The takedown was straight out of a movie. Federal agents sweeping in, seizing tens of millions in shady betting money tied to the NBA's underworld. Over 30 arrests in 11 states. Yeah, you heard that right. NBA insiders rubbing shoulders with the Bonanno, Gambino, Genovese, and Lucchese crime families. We're talking high-tech cheating gear, X-ray poker tables, rigged shufflers, contact lenses reading invisible marks, and a money laundering web stretching coast to coast. It all kicked off on the morning of October 23, 2025, when agents rolled out a synchronized operation worthy of an action thriller. Among the cuffed, Chauncey Billups, Terry Rozier, and ex-player Damon Jones, names that detonated across the basketball world. And when FBI Director Kash Patel faced the cameras, his calm delivery made the fallout hit even harder. The weight in his voice could freeze a room. This wasn't some petty locker room betting scandal. This was organized crime crashing headfirst into professional basketball, and the impact was nuclear. Let's get one thing straight. This wasn't a misunderstanding. It was a full-blown criminal blueprint hiding in plain sight. Federal prosecutors laid it all out. Two monstrous intertwined operations. First, Operation Nothing But Bet, a slick insider wagering network run by corrupt NBA figures. Second, Operation Royal Flush, a mafia-backed underground poker empire. Both schemes ran for years, right under everyone's noses, minting millions in fraudulent profits. The betting playbook was diabolically simple. NBA insiders leaked secret details, player injuries, rest nights, even game plans, to a shadowy ring of high-stakes gamblers. This wasn't gossip over cigars. This was insider trading with a basketball spin. And here's the kicker. The league literally trained them every year on what not to do. Yet they still did it. If someone asks whether a player's suiting up, you say no. One insider admitted. Proof they knew exactly how deep they were in. These weren't clueless rookies breaking rules by accident. These were seasoned pros who looked at the line between integrity and greed, and crossed it without blinking. These weren't clueless benchwarmers. These were coaches and veteran players who'd sat through endless compliance meetings, nodding along, fully aware of the line they were about to bulldoze. And bulldoze it they did. So, let's peel back the curtain on what prosecutors actually found. Because trust me, the devil in this story wears designer suits and championship rings. February 9th, 2023. Lakers versus Bucks. Just days after LeBron James shattered Kareem Abdul-Jabbar's scoring record, former Cavs guard Damon Jones allegedly decided to cash in on a secret only he knew. Court documents say he texted a buddy with ice-cold precision. Get a big bet on Milwaukee before the info drops. Player 3 is out tonight. Bet enough so Jones can eat too. Translation? LeBron's sitting and the house is about to win big. At that moment, LeBron wasn't on any injury list. Yet he skipped the game. The Lakers lost 115-106, and the bettors who got Jones's tip made a killing. But hold on, it spirals darker. Jump to March 23, 2023. Enter Terry Rozier, then with the Charlotte Hornets plotting what prosecutors call a fake injury hustle. He allegedly told his childhood friend Daryl Lear that he'd duck out of the Pelicans game early, claiming foot discomfort. Sounds innocent, except it was a setup to milk prop bets. The plan, play a few minutes, limp off, and let the underwagers rain cash. According to the feds, Rozier wasn't hurt, just hustling the odds, and that night, the odds paid in full. Gamblers threw down more than $200,000 betting that Terry Rozier would flop. And oh, he delivered the performance of a lifetime. When the cash out came, prosecutors say the winnings were hand-delivered straight to his house, where the crew allegedly sat around counting their dirty jackpot like a victory parade. The sheer nerve of it, over $200,000 in bets. On one man's bad night, one bettor alone fired off 30 wagers totaling 37 in a manic 46-minute blitz at Harrah's Gulf Coast Casino. Then came the magic trick. Rozier played exactly 9 minutes and 34 seconds, limped off with a suspicious foot injury, and posted the stat line of a ghost: 5 points, 4 boards, 2 assists. Every single bet hit, every single one paid out. And if prosecutors are right, Rozier himself watched the counting like it was a post-game highlight reel. But the plot twisted again the very next day. March 24, 2023. According to investigators, Chauncey Billups, head coach of the Portland Trail Blazers, quietly tipped defendant Eric Earnest that the team would be tanking, and that Damian Lillard wouldn't suit up. That intel wasn't public yet. The injury report hadn't even changed. But somebody knew, and somebody made sure the right gamblers got rich off it. In total, at least 7 NBA games, spanning the Hornets, Lakers, Blazers, Magic, Bucks, Thunder, and Raptors were allegedly rigged in this insider betting circus. To dodge the radar, the crew allegedly unleashed a whole army of straw bettors, each placing maxed-out wagers so no one book could sniff the pattern. Then they scrubbed the dirty money clean, cycling it through cash swaps, shell companies, and crypto wallets like a digital washing machine. U.S. Attorney Joseph Nocella Jr. didn't mince words, calling it one of the boldest sports corruption sagas since betting went mainstream. And he wasn't exaggerating. The FBI stacked up 3,000 recorded calls, over 24 search warrants, and a money trail dripping with millions in shady profits. But if you thought the sports betting scam was slick, buckle up. The poker side of this circus makes Ocean's 11 look like high school drama club. The rigged poker empire had been running since April 2019, stretching from Las Vegas to Miami, from the Hamptons to Manhattan, bleeding victims out of more than $7.15 million, with one unlucky soul losing $1.8 million in a single sitting. And here's where it gets downright cinematic. Prosecutors say the cheaters wielded gadgets straight out of a spy flick, hacked shuffling machines that secretly scanned cards and beamed the data wirelessly, X-ray poker tables that could see through face-down hands, hidden cameras in chip trays, and contact lenses that read invisible card markings. James Bond wishes he had tech this dirty. I can't tell you what that top card is, unless I slip on these magic lenses, laughed casino security pro Sal Pente, showing how the scam tech worked like pure witchcraft. Cards were invisibly barcoded along the edges, then fed through rigged shufflers that whispered every secret to a hidden camera beneath the table. The system would literally predict the winner before the flop hit. In one eerie demo, it nailed the outcome. A full house, 3s over 5s with robotic precision. High-tech crime had officially gone cinematic, but the creepiest part wasn't the gadgets. It was the cast. Prosecutors say Chauncey Billups and Damon Jones were the operation's face cards, NBA royalty used as bait to lure rich suckers or fish into the trap. The setup was psychological genius. Who wouldn't jump at the chance to play poker with actual NBA legends? Every smiling face at the table, from the dealer to the stars, was allegedly in on it. And behind the curtain, none other than the Bonanno, Gambino, Genovese, and Lucchese crime families. The mob handled security, enforced unpaid debts with threats and, in at least one case, a gun, and pocketed their bloody share. This wasn't poker. It was a mafia-backed illusion, using basketball. Fame is the perfect disguise for organized fraud on a multi-million-dollar scale. What makes this scandal so sinister is how inevitable it feels. Like a storm everyone saw forming but chose to ignore. This didn't pop up overnight. The roots were planted years ago, when the 2018 Supreme Court threw open the gates and legalized sports betting nationwide. It basically handed Pandora the keys to the casino. Now, with over $150 billion pouring through the system every year, and laughably weak safeguards, the chaos we're seeing was only a matter of time. Follow the breadcrumbs, because history didn't just hint at this. It practically screamed. Remember Tim Donaghy back in 2007? The NBA ref who bet on games he was officiating? The man had a freakish 77% win rate, something only achievable if you're rigging the table you're sitting at. He got 15 months in prison and a lifetime ban, and then commissioner, ban, and then commissioner. David Stern called it the worst crisis in NBA history. The league promised reforms, swore it would never happen again. And yet here we are, 18 years later. staring at a scandal that makes Donaghy look like amateur hour. Then came Jontay Porter in 2024, a Toronto Raptors player who took the under to a whole new low. He leaked his own health info, bet on himself to underperform, and tanked his minutes just enough to trigger over $1.1 million in frozen winnings. The NBA called it a betrayal. The feds called it wire fraud. And the fans? They called it the day the game stopped feeling real. The bettors cashed in, but Jontay Porter cashed out his career. He pleaded guilty to wire fraud conspiracy in July 2024, and now waits for sentencing in December 2025, with prosecutors eyeing 3.5 to 4 years behind bars. But here's where the plot turns ice cold. 2 defendants in the 2025 indictments allegedly threatened Porter to keep him in line, proving this wasn't just greed anymore. This was coercion. Organized crime wasn't lurking in the background. It was pulling the strings. Porter wasn't some reckless player chasing easy money. He was trapped. Buried in debt to underground gambling rings, he became a pawn in a much darker game. And when your creditors have mafia ties, no isn't an acceptable answer. Then comes the Damon Jones connection, and that's where the web gets even stickier. Jones, an 11-year NBA vet, who made around $21.8 million, saw his fortune evaporate post-retirement, multiple bankruptcies, bad bets, and worse company. But he had one golden chip left, his longtime friendship with LeBron James. That bond granted him access to Lakers buses, locker rooms, even pre-game shoot-arounds during the 2022-23 season. Official title: Unreal role: the ultimate vibes guy. But in hindsight, that access wasn't about friendship. It was opportunity, wrapped in trust, waiting to be exploited. It was the perfect setup for anyone chasing inside info. According to pro gambler Michael Osborne, Damon Jones wasn't just unlucky. He was addicted. A self-described high roller haunting casino VIP rooms, puffing on pricey cigars, flashing designer drip, and begging hot-hand players for loan money to keep his streak alive. And to earn instant credibility, he'd casually drop the ultimate name. Yeah, me and LeBron go way back. That line opened every velvet rope in Vegas. Now let's be crystal clear. LeBron James had zero clue about any of this. Neither he nor the Lakers have been tied to a single illegal act. But this mess shows how access and friendship, those personal NBA perks, can morph into tools for manipulation when the wrong person gets desperate. And maybe that's the heart of the problem. Gambling has always been woven into NBA locker rooms like background noise. Coaches and players openly admit that card games, poker, bourrée, take your pick, run hot on team flights and in post-game lounges. Even Lakers coach J.J. Redick, not Reed, as some outlets misreported, once laughed about the insanity of team card pots, calling bourrée the greatest game on earth until someone loses their rent. It's that double life the league can't shake. On one side, multi-million-dollar sponsorships with DraftKings and FanDuel. On the other, a culture that's been gambling long before it was legal. The league has practically turned gambling into a halftime show. Ads, promos, odds flashing across every broadcast like stock tickers for your wallet. But the second coaches or players wander from friendly bets to full-blown insider sabotage, everyone suddenly clutches their pearls. Cue the outrage. Enter Commissioner Adam Silver, the man who literally wrote the 2014 op-ed championing legalized betting, now forced to clean up its ugliest side effect. During an Amazon Live broadcast, Silver's voice cracked just enough to sound human. My initial reaction was, I was deeply disturbed. There's nothing more important to the league or its fans than the integrity of competition. I had a pit in my stomach. It was very upsetting. You could almost feel the corporate panic behind the sincerity. Silver revealed the NBA had already investigated Terry Rozier back in 2023. After sportsbooks flagged sketchy betting spikes, but get this, the probe found no rule violations. The league handed its data to federal agents, admitting that subpoenas and jail time were tools they simply didn't have. Translation: we tried, but the FBI plays in a different league, which raises the million-dollar question. If the NBA cleared Rozier mere months before his arrest, why should anyone trust its internal policing now? Even insiders smell the hypocrisy. One executive told reporters flat out, "This isn't about Rozier or Billups. It's about whether fans can still believe what they see on the court." Silver's solution? More rules, but bigger ones. He's pushing for federal gambling legislation, tired of the messy state-by-state free-for-all. In his own words, "I wish there were national standards. We need tighter regulation and limits on how this stuff is promoted." A noble thought. If only it hadn't come after the house was already on fire. Silver warned that the league needs to monitor the flood of gambling promos and non-stop ads, but let's be real, that horse bolted ages ago. Still, the NBA scrambled into damage control mode. Terry Rozier and Chauncey Billups were instantly slapped with indefinite administrative leave, while Tiago Splitter slid into the Trailblazers' hot seat as interim coach. The Miami Heat benched Rozier too, though shuffling rosters won't fix a system that's leaking integrity faster than a busted pipe. Then Washington stepped in. A bipartisan squad of 6 lawmakers from the House Committee on Energy and Commerce demanded that Silver show up by October 31st, 2025, with answers, real ones. They want receipts. How the league guards insider info, how it polices leaks, and whether its avalanche of betting promos needs a reality check. Representative Paul Tonko didn't sugarcoat it either, calling the NBA's betting deals inevitable poison and demanding actual safeguards for both fans and players. Congress sniffing around pro sports? That's never a good omen. The last time they got this serious, it was steroids, not spread points. But the numbers back up their outrage. Since 2018, at least 23 athletes and coaches across major leagues have been suspended or banned for gambling violations. Meanwhile, America's sports betting market has ballooned into a $150 billion behemoth. And now, everyone's realizing the monster might be too big to cage. The U.S. sports betting market now pumps out over $150 billion a year. And with that kind of money sloshing around, the temptation to cheat practically sells itself. Even Tim Donaghy, yes, that ex-referee who once rigged games, warned that this scandal is only the opening act. It'll spread like wildfire, he predicted, blaming the NBA's deepening love affair with gambling. Media analyst Bomani Jones echoed the dread, calling it the tip of a long-brewing betting crisis. And the mob, they've evolved too. FBI Assistant Director Christopher Wray said modern organized crime has traded brass knuckles for betting apps, while NYPD Commissioner Jessica Tisch noted how these schemes thrive on one fragile thing: trust. Former Gambino enforcers spelled it out darker. NBA figures like Chauncey Billups may have been blackmailed into the racket. 'Cause once you owe the mafia money, you're not a partner. You're property. Now the fallout hits. The feds didn't just bust gamblers. They detonated reputations. Defendants face wire fraud and money laundering conspiracy charges, each carrying up to 20 years in prison. Stack them together, and that's potentially 40 years behind bars. For some, it's a lifetime. For Chauncey Billups, a Hall of Famer who once earned over $100 million, the prospect of trading luxury for lockdown is painfully real. For Terry Rozier, pulling in $20 million a year, it's the death of a career before 32. The precedent is brutal and absolute. Once the league labels you a cheater, there are no comebacks, only endings. Jonte Porter already took the fall with a lifetime ban. And let's be honest, if Terry Rozier and Chauncey Billups go down, the NBA will likely swing the same hammer. Commissioner Adam Silver keeps repeating his favorite line: integrity of the game comes before everything. And history backs him up. The league doesn't hand out mercy when its image is bleeding. Still, the defense is in full spin mode. Rozier's lawyer, Jim Trusty, insists his client isn't a gambler at all, calling the arrest a public spectacle meant to humiliate, not deliver justice. Meanwhile, Chris Haywood, repping Billups, fired back even harder. Chauncey Billups has never and would never gamble on basketball, leak team intel, or betray the NBA's trust. Men of integrity do not cheat. Sounds noble, sure, but here's the ugly truth. When the FBI brings a case this massive, they rarely miss. Feds don't go public unless their evidence pile could crush a courtroom. They've got 3,000 recorded calls, dozens of search warrants, and years of quiet investigation behind these charges. And the money hit? Brutal. Federal defense teams cost fortunes. Victims in the poker scam alone lost over $7 million. Money prosecutors will fight to claw back. Add in asset forfeiture. Everything from cash to crypto to shell company accounts. And you've got lives stripped to the studs. For Rozier, the fallout could be nuclear. If his contract is voided and the NBA ban hammer falls, he could lose tens of millions in salary and endorsements overnight. The house of cards didn't just collapse. It's burying its players in the rubble. If Terry Rozier's deal gets shredded, we're talking about losing the rest of his multi-million-dollar salary, endorsements, and any shot overseas, because international leagues almost never touch players branded by an NBA ban. And Chauncey Billups? His coaching days are toast, win or lose in court. The verdict might come later, but the career obituary is already written. Still, beneath all the outrage, there's a messy human side no one wants to touch. Analysts keep circling back to one word: addiction. Especially in the case of Damon Jones, who somehow burned through over $20 million and ended up in debt, despite an 11-year career. It doesn't justify the crimes, but it does explain the spiral. The rush, the chase, the desperate need to win back what's lost. When gambling addiction takes the wheel, logic and self-control vanish faster than a bad hand at the table. Then came Charles Barkley, dropping the blunt truth bomb everyone else tiptoed around. He wasn't buying the sympathy narrative. His take, accountability. These guys aren't struggling workers, he said. Rozier's banking $20 million a year. Billups cleared $100 million in his career, and they still rolled the dice. That's not desperation, that's stupidity. And honestly, it's hard to argue with that. The money they risked was pocket change compared to what they had. And somehow, that makes it even worse. Maybe the real heartbreak here isn't the fall of a few reckless players. It's the gut punch to the entire sport's soul. Suddenly, every clutch shot, every mystery injury, every last-minute lineup swap feels tainted. Fans who pour their hearts, wallets, and weekends into this game are now asking the question no league ever wants to hear. Was that game real or rigged? And that question hits where it hurts most: the money. The NBA's empire runs on gambling now. Between its $76 billion media deals and golden handshake partnerships with DraftKings, FanDuel, and every sportsbook under the sun, betting has become as much a part of the broadcast as the buzzer. But trust, that's the currency the league can't afford to lose. Experts are already throwing red flags. Harvard law professor Mike McCann warned that mob connections could corrode public faith faster than any ref scandal in history. Sports business analysts predict billion-dollar damage, not just in lawsuits from victims, but in brands quietly backing away from a suddenly radioactive logo. And if you think it's over, think again. FBI Director Kash Patel all but teased that this is just the opening chapter, hinting that more arrests, possibly even college basketball ties, could still drop. If that happens, the fallout won't just hit the NBA. It could shatter the entire sports ecosystem. Now the league stands at a crossroads. Does it double down on its gambling gold rush, promising stricter oversight and hoping fans forget? Or does it slam the brakes, risking billions to save its soul? Commissioner Adam Silver says he wants stronger federal rules and limits on prop bets. The irony: he helped build the system that just might take his league down. The NBA's next move could define its future, or finish it. Commissioner Adam Silver has floated new restrictions on prop bets, especially the shady unders for low-minute players that are easiest to rig. Some insiders even want a full-on ban on player sportsbook endorsements or the end of in-game betting altogether. But let's be honest, that's a fantasy. The betting industry is a political Goliath, and state governments are hooked on gambling tax money like it's oxygen. The NBA itself is so entangled with sportsbook revenue that cutting ties would mean burning down its own business model. Untangling that web would take near miraculous political will and a willingness to lose billions. Meanwhile, fans are left reeling. Portland Trail Blazers supporters feel blindsided, calling it a betrayal of basketball's soul. Down in Miami, Heat fans are just as stunned, struggling to square Terry Rozier's talent with the headlines splashed across every screen. As for the accused, their road ahead looks brutal. Jontay Porter faces sentencing this December, with prosecutors recommending 3.5 to 4 years behind bars. Others, like Long Pham and Mahmoud Mala, who already pleaded guilty, await similar fates. The few still fighting charges are staring down years of trials and a future built on uncertainty. But the real question hanging over it all is bigger than any one case. Can pro sports still protect its integrity in an age where betting is everywhere? Since the 2018 Supreme Court ruling, at least 23 athletes and coaches have been banned or suspended for gambling violations. The pattern isn't random, it's a warning. And if the leagues don't act fast, the line between fair play and fixed games might vanish for good. This scandal isn't fading, it's festering. The uneasy marriage between pro sports and gambling was always bound for drama, and now we're watching it hit its breaking point. The money is enormous, sure, but so are the risks. This could be remembered as the exact moment the relationship cracked, or just another scandal quietly buried under the weight of billion-dollar betting deals. What's undeniable is that over 30 people are now facing federal charges that could lock them away for decades. Reputations? Torched. Careers? Gone. And the league's most fragile currency, public trust, has been shattered. The true scale of this mess might not be clear for months, maybe years. FBI Director Kash Patel ended his press conference with a warning that hit like a thunderclap. The question isn't if more will fall, it's how many and how high this goes. Translation? We've only seen the opening credits, because if history has taught us anything, what's visible is just the surface, and this surface is already filthy. Then came the shocker. The NBA dropped a lifetime ban on the Portland Trail Blazers franchise itself, after investigators linked the team to a sprawling, multi-million-dollar gambling web. The FBI's 11-state takedown bagged over 30 arrests. But what agents claim to have found inside the Blazers' own facility? That's the kind of discovery that doesn't just shake a league. It threatens to rewrite its entire playbook. And just like that, the sports world went from tip-off to total meltdown. Earlier today, the FBI dropped a bombshell. Charges against Portland Trail Blazers head coach Chauncey Billups, Miami Heat guard Terry Rozier, and former Cleveland Cavaliers guard Damon Jones. The arrests were part of a massive, multi-state sting, a cinematic 11-state sweep that netted 34 suspects in what authorities are calling one of the most elaborate, illegal gambling networks in American sports history. The lineup of names reads like a fever dream for sports fans. Billups, Rozier, Jones, these aren't fringe figures. They're the faces of franchises. But the real twist, this wasn't just a few insiders swapping tips. No, it's a web stretching straight into the underworld. Federal investigators say the operation had ties to 4 infamous New York crime families: the Bonanno, Gambino, Lucchese, and Genovese clans. Yes, the actual mafia was allegedly manipulating NBA games and running high-tech poker scams that fleeced victims out of millions. During a tense New York press conference, FBI Director Kash Patel didn't sugarcoat it. This was an illegal gambling and game-rigging operation spanning years, he said, calling it a historic takedown of a criminal enterprise that merged professional sports with organized crime. In other words, this isn't a scandal. It's a full-blown heist movie, and the NBA just got cast as the unsuspecting victim. This takedown didn't just rattle the NBA, it collided headfirst with La Cosa Nostra itself. And when the FBI director personally steps up to the mic, you know this isn't your average locker room scandal. This is federal-level crime, polished and poisonous. Investigators say they uncovered 2 tightly linked criminal empires. First, a mafia-backed high-tech poker ring that scammed rich players out of over $7 million since 2019. We're talking X-ray poker tables, hacked shuffle machines, marked E, decks visible only through special contact lenses, and chip trays wired to track every move. Forget smoky backrooms. This was Ocean's 11 meets The Godfather, and the con was painfully real. Then came the second act, a sports betting conspiracy that allegedly fixed at least 7 NBA games between March 2023 and March 2024. The playbook? Inside info. Players and coaches leaked private details, injuries, rest plans, early exits, giving certain gamblers the kind of guaranteed wins Vegas dreams are made of. And then came the dawn raids. Around 6 a.m. Pacific time, FBI agents rolled up to Chauncey Billups' Portland home. Just hours earlier, he'd been coaching an NBA game. The next morning, handcuffs. Across the country in Orlando, Terry Rozier got the same rude awakening. Picture it. You go to bed a millionaire athlete, wake up to the FBI reading you your rights. Remember, Chauncey Billups isn't some bench warmer. He's Mr. Big Shot himself, an NBA Finals MVP, a Hall of Famer, and now the unlikely face of the league's darkest scandal. Chauncey Billups isn't just another coach caught in controversy. He's NBA royalty, a five-time All-Star, the 2004 Finals MVP, and a 2024 Hall of Fame inductee. This is Mr. Big Shot, the clutch king who led the Detroit Pistons to glory, the man who thrived under pressure. But now, he's staring down federal charges that could stack up to 40 years behind bars. The same man who once buried championship threes might end up fighting for his freedom instead of the ball. Then there's Terry Rozier, aka Scary Terry, the human highlight reel pulling down $26.6 million a year and over $160 million in career earnings. And yet here we are. Everyone's asking the same thing. Why would someone making that kind of money roll the dice on an illegal gambling ring? The FBI's 11-state sting pulled in more than 30 suspects, and it wasn't just about basketball. It was about the mob. Federal agents didn't just bust gamblers. They tore into La Cosa Nostra itself, locking horns with the Bonanno, Gambino, Genovese, and Lucchese crime families. These weren't silent investors. They were enforcers, organizers, and beneficiaries, taking 20 to 30% cuts of the profits, running armed protection at underground poker games, and turning violent when anyone dared to skip payment. Victims who owed too much didn't get reminders. They got threats, broken promises, and sometimes broken bones. This wasn't gambling gone wrong. It was the mafia, the NBA, and millions in dirty money colliding in broad daylight. If victims owed more than $300,000, the mob didn't send polite reminders. They sent pain. We're talking pistol whippings, arson attacks, and straight-up kneecap threats to anyone daring to dodge a debt. This wasn't a smoky poker night gone sideways. This was organized crime at full throttle, using NBA fame as bait to reel in rich, overconfident victims. The NBA's reaction came fast and furious. Within hours of the arrests, the league slapped Chauncey Billups and Terry Rozier with indefinite paid leave, saying, "We take these allegations with the utmost seriousness. The integrity of our game remains our top priority." The Portland Trail Blazers wasted no time. Tiago Splitter was bumped up to interim head coach. The Miami Heat benched Rozier before the public even knew he'd been arrested. Now both franchises are scrambling to contain the PR wildfire lit under their brands. But here's what really chills NBA fans. This isn't their first dance with scandal. Just 18 months earlier, Jontay Porter of the Toronto Raptors was hit with a lifetime ban for manipulating prop bets. The same crime, different faces. Porter later pleaded guilty to wire fraud conspiracy in July 2024, but the most jaw-dropping twist. Prosecutors say some of the same defendants now charged in this case were the ones who pressured Porter to keep rigging games. That precedent matters, because in the NBA rulebook there's no wiggle room. Article 35 is brutal and final. If you're caught fixing games, you're done for life. No appeal, no redemption arc, just a career erased from the record books. It's not hundreds, it's not thousands, it's not tens of thousands, it's not even millions. We're talking tens of millions of dollars, stolen, laundered, and shuffled through an NBA-sized con that spanned years. When FBI Director Kash Patel hammered that point home, stressing not millions, but tens of millions, it wasn't for drama. It was to show just how massive this empire of fraud really was. This wasn't a side hustle gone bad. This was industrial-scale corruption, feeding off the biggest basketball brand on earth. And the timing, almost poetic. The arrests dropped just 2 days into the 2025-26 NBA season, right as the league basked in its glittery opening night spotlight. Commissioner Adam Silver had literally just gone on the Pat McAfee show, warning about prop betting risks and manipulation, completely unaware that federal agents were about to turn his worst fears into headline reality. Then the conversation shifted courtside. Shaquille O'Neal, live on air, weighed in after the bombshell. "Look, I'm not gonna act like I don't know guys who gamble," he said, breaking the tension with uncomfortable honesty. "We've all played cards, spades, tonk. We've all had fun. But every player in that locker room knows the rules. You don't cross that line." His tone said it all. The legend wasn't defending the behavior. He was disappointed. "I'm ashamed they put their families and the NBA in this spot," he added. And in that moment you could almost hear it. The sound of a billion-dollar league realizing it might never look clean again. "Yeah, we played tonk. We gambled on flights. We joked around," Shaq admitted on air. "But every single year the league sat us down and told us what was off limits. If somebody asked you about a player's status, you shut your mouth. These dudes knew the rules. They knew the risk. And I'm ashamed. Ashamed they dragged their families and the NBA into this mess. Now buckle up, because this next part feels ripped straight out of a Martin Scorsese script." The first of the two schemes, a mafia-backed high-tech poker con that ran for years under everyone's noses. This wasn't some smoky backroom filled with wannabe hustlers. This was a precision-engineered, multi-million-dollar scam, the kind only organized crime could bankroll. Picture this: high-stakes Texas Hold'em games in Manhattan, penthouses in Kips Bay and the West Village, lavish Hamptons mansions, neon-soaked Vegas casinos, and private Miami clubs where the elite came to flex their fortunes. The buy-ins alone ranged from $10,000 to $100,000 a seat. That's not a card game. That's a financial blood sport. And here's the genius twist. Prosecutors say Chauncey Billups played the role of the face card. His job, to reel in the whales. Think about it. If you're a hedge fund, shark or tech billionaire, how could you resist the chance to play poker with a Hall of Famer, an NBA champion, a man you once watched hit clutch shots on TV? That kind of celebrity credibility was the bait. And the house? The house was rigged, and in every possible way, it lends an air of legitimacy like you've joined some exclusive club. Until you learn the truth. According to the federal indictment, Chauncey Billups was pocketing kickbacks, including a documented $50,000 after one 2019 session, allegedly taking 5 to 10% of the house's haul, tens of thousands a night. But the real headline is the cheating tech. Prosecutors say the ring used modified Deckmate 2 shufflers stolen in a 2022 Bronx armed robbery, machines targeted because they could be hacked. Those shufflers contain cameras that log every card. When altered, they were fitted with RFID and Bluetooth gear to scan entire decks and beam the data to off-site spotters. Hidden cams and the machine's own sensors would identify cards, sort decks, and even alert accomplices which hands were coming. Spotters then texted on-site quarterbacks at the table with precise card locations. The cues were tiny. Chip, taps, subtle nudges, so slick you'd miss them unless you were looking for trouble.